number one thing that we see in our coaching, and when people inquire about our coaching, that is getting in the way of real estate agents and mortgage professionals being successful in this business. Because people avoid it like the plague. Don't want to do it, can't do it, afraid to do it, I don't do it, I'm too sophisticated to do it, I already know it all, so I don't have to do it. This is what we hear. Go back and read pages 51 to 54 and shift. And read it at least 10 or 15 times. Because in there is a very poignant story by Gary about how if he didn't come to grips or to become at peace with lead generation, then none of this would have happened. So anybody can have lead generation reluctance. I'm going to show you mine in a minute because we created a report. I mean, a lot of you have taken the DISC profile, things like that. We created an assessment that tests what type of lead generation reluctance you have and why you have it. And why do you think we do that? So we know how to help. Because right now in this business, you can go to virtually every other coach or coaching company, and they're going to say to you, if you're not lead generating, your why isn't big enough. Hey, you can have the why as big as this building. And if you have fear of rejection, you're not going to lead generate. I had a coach a couple weeks ago say to somebody, not one of our coaches, somebody who called us seeking advice, saying, you know, if you don't lead generate, keep some $100 bills on your desk, and if you don't make the calls, burn them. It's absolutely nuts. It's absolutely nuts. All reluctance as it relates to lead generation and prospecting comes from fear of rejection. And that comes out in a few different ways, and we're going to show those to you. Okay? Where did the information come from? Well, we polled well over 600 real estate agents throughout the U.S. and Canada. And then because I live in this area where these institutions of higher education like Harvard and MIT and Boston University and those places you may have heard of, I have a very good friend who graduated from MIT with a degree in computer sciences and also graduated from the Harvard Business School. And we designed this assessment. We took all the information we gathered and we designed a test. There are 12 types of lead generation reluctance. Now, some of you might see a little bit of yourselves in each one of these. However, everyone has one predominant type. And here's what we found. When you address the predominant type, just like Dave was saying, when you're fearful of something, that means that's something that you're intended to do or maybe even destined to do. What we find is that when we help you with the primary type of lead generation reluctance you have, all the other ones go away. Because you've addressed your primary fear. Here you go. Very good. So the first one is called the disparager. And that's those of us who worry and will not take social risks and become so preoccupied with what might go wrong during prospecting, then we just don't do it. We just stop. We just worry ourselves into not doing it. So that book that Dave mentioned earlier, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living, it's an absolutely fantastic book. We definitely picked that up. But there are a lot of people who fall in this category who worry about what's going to go wrong on a lead generation call. Nothing can go wrong on a lead generation call. Nothing can go wrong. All they can say is yes or no, I'm not interested at this time. Nothing can go wrong. Next is called preparation immobility. And that's those of us who are always preparing to lead generate. However, when it comes time to pick up the phone, we don't do it, right? I mean, literally, I'm going to show you my report in a moment, and I do have some preparation mobility. And I can remember how this came out. When I had my real estate sales business, I would have my lead generation list, my prospecting list on the left side of my desk, and I would take it and I would move it to the middle of the desk. And I would move from the middle of the desk to the right side of the desk. And then from the right side of the desk to the credenza behind me. And then it was almost 10:15, so I'd go to Dunkin' Donuts and get an iced tea. And then I'd come back, and my assistant would ask a question or two. And of course, I would make those questions, much bigger than they are. And then so I would talk with her for half an hour, 45 minutes. And now it's 11:15, and I said, "Well, lead generation time is over. Time to go do something else, right?" And And I would do that day after day after day. Now let me tell you why this BS that your big why isn't big enough doesn't apply here. Because I had children. I had a family. I had a home. I had a business. I had people that worked for me. And I still would not pick up the phone. That had nothing to do with my big why. And it had nothing to do with going up and buying a Mercedes for $80,000 so I'd have a big payment to coerce me into making prospecting calls. It's because I had this fear of rejection, just like Dave had the remembrance of his grandmother on the floor not knowing how to use the phone. And every single person in this room has one of those. We want to find out what it is and get rid of it. Next is called the image fanatic. And that's those of us who are obsessed with image, to the point that we believe image sells rather than us. So image fanatics basically think, well, if I drive the right car and carry the right purse and have the right suit, people will be impressed by that and they'll want to do business with me. You know something? There might be a little morsel of truth in there. People might recognize you because of that, but they're not going to do business with you because of that. They're going to do business with you. Why? Because you've asked them. That's why. Next is called presentation panic, and that's those of us who display stage fright or become worried if we have to give a presentation like this. Now listen, the first time that I did a public speaking engagement, it was in a little town called Leominster, Massachusetts, and it was before a group at the Chamber of Commerce. There were going to be about 15 people there, and I was living in a city called Worcester, Massachusetts at the time. It was a 20-minute drive. I can remember being in my house saying, maybe I'll get a flat tire on the way there. Maybe it'll snow. Maybe nobody will show up. I was scared to death to go and do that presentation. However, I did it. And it wasn't pretty, I can tell you that right now. And then I did it again, and again, and again. And again, and again, and again, and again, and again, to the point now where it's very natural for me, right? So how do you overcome presentation panic? Through practice. How do you become proficient at scripts? Through practice. Exactly. Next is being in career denial. A lot of people do laugh at this one, and you might not be surprised at the numbers here. 42% of our realtors wish that they were in a different profession. So 42% of realtors are secretly saying to themselves, I wish I was doing something else. Now, I think a lot of it has to do, again, with lead generation reluctance. They don't want to really be doing something else, but they think, well, if I'm doing something else, I don't have to lead generate. Okay? Get ready for this one. 60% of realtors have a negative opinion of salespeople. Excuse me, what do? We're in sales. Exactly right. You might want to call it whatever you want. You want to call it consulting, you want to call it advising, you want to call it all this other stuff. That's just total BS. We're in sales. That's what we do. So if we have a negative opinion of salespeople, who do we have a negative opinion of? Ourselves. We've got to change that. Then this is where I say, listen, be proud of what you do. I'm proud of what I do. This is a true number now. As you can tell, I love the numbers, right? Every single time you successfully complete one real estate transaction, over 1,000 lives are positively impacted.